The initial founders basically were formed by the villages along the number 2, and they were brought together basically to try to form a hockey league. They just put in an artificial ice surface, an ice plant, in March 1st of 1963, which allowed the community to be able to have a structured hockey program, which you could go in, say, around the middle of October, and you go to about the middle of April. So you knew you had games, and you didn't have to, the ice conditions were going to be fairly stable.
It was a godsend when the ice plant went in for artificial ice. I can remember playing hockey, and I'm sure all of the kids at that age were playing on ponds all over the area, and it was really great after the ice went in that each community had their own teams, and it was a joy to come to the rink and play in an organized atmosphere. Two founding members from Lantz were Keith Miller and Reverend Russell Hatton. What hasn't already been said about what Keith has done for not only the community of Lantz, but East Hants as a whole? He's done it all. It didn't surprise me that when I read the minutes of the first meeting that he was the chairman of that meeting and also was elected president of the association, so he was the first president. Reverend Hatton was a hockey player himself. He enjoyed the game very much. I was talking to one of his former teammates, Murray Ashley, and he was telling me that Reverend Hatton was a very skilled forward. He not only played for Lantz, but he also played on a team from King's College at that time.
The 3 board members from Milford that were in the East Hants Minor Hockey Association were Bud Kerr, Dave Hubley, and George Lacey. George was very active in the early years with the board for the minor hockey, and very active with Milford with registration. And then he took up the coaching later in the years, and actually was able to coach us to a league championship in my last year in midget in Milford. And that would have been a highlight for us, and I know a highlight for George. So Bud, he was very active in it. Bud was an athlete and was very involved in the hockey in Milford. He coached at various levels, and as his daughter Vicky always told me, every Saturday the car would be overfilling with boys on their way to the rink, and whatever level he was coaching at, and it was not uncommon to see Bud reach in his pocket to come up with money to make sure there was enough cash to cover the ice time for the day. Dave, a great organizer, Dave Hubley is, and he helped out in many ways organizing not with the East Hants Minor Hockey, but with the hockey movement in Milford. And he also coached later in his career too, with his 2 boys coming up. And probably the highlight to Dave's career and being involved with hockey was when his son Michael played with the East Hants Midgets and went to the Wrigley's in 73, 74, I think. And Dave was probably one of those ones behind the scene helping out and doing what he could. So that would have been his highlight to a long time of serving the boys in Milford in hockey.
I lived right behind the rink, and Keith Miller approached me after we used to have a little hockey team from the church. And he approached me one day and said, we're going to start minor hockey and we need a referee. Would you be interested? I think I said yes, because I ended up going there and refereeing like from 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock at night. And yeah, I think mainly it was because I was so close I didn't have to worry about somebody being there. I just had to walk down to the rink.
The 2 members for the association were Joe McKenna and Menzie Stewart from Stewiacke. Menzie worked at his brother's lumber mill, Raymond Stewart's lumber mill, for years, and he had one son, Bobby, who played minor hockey. But Joe McKenna worked at the Hoskins Variety Store. In fact, his living quarters were attached to the store, and they had 3 girls, and they, of course, grew up in Stewiacke. I said to my wife, I said, gee, it's too bad we couldn't start the kids earlier like the other kids in the other communities down here. So we called every house in Stewiacke, and we ended up with 85 kids and had a team in every division from squirt then to juvenile. And that was a start of my recollection of a Stewiacke Minor Hockey Association.
Two founders from Shubie were Avert Ettinger and Ivan Ettinger. Avert at the time was the counselor for the area, and he was a volunteer fireman. He also worked with a lot of youth in the area, so he knew pretty much what was going on as far as the development of people, the young people, and is very interested in that development. Ivan had his own little hardware store in the middle of Shubie, knew just about everybody. He also, in the hardware store, had a sports department. So all the equipment, sports equipment from anyone that wanted any, they were in his shop a lot of the time ordering stuff. He also played hockey, and he knew how important it was to a community to have hockey within the community, because they had been on a team that celebrated hockey in a lot of different ways, and it was a great spirit for the community.
The three guys that were members of the East Hants Minor Hockey Association for Enfield, represented Enfield, were my dad, Don Boyd, Jack Garden, and Clyde Damone. Jack was one of the kingpins of sports in Enfield. He did it all. He coached, he looked after fields, he organized, he was there, he looked after transportation. He was a great guy, and I don't know what we would have done without him. It would have been a lot less sports in Enfield without Jack Garden. Don Boyd, well, he just loved sports, and he wanted to see as many kids as possible do the best they could in sports. He knew kids in sports were going to be not in trouble. Clyde Damone, he actually helped a lot, various ways, helped with building the outdoor rink behind the church, helped with the Little League baseball field, building that. Clyde was a great guy, and he did a lot for the community.
Basically what you had is that you had these villages that were represented at the initial meeting, but it became very clear within starting the first year, you had Elmsdale, who initially didn't have enough players to form a team. They were lumped in under Enfield, and the same with Dutch Settlement under Lantz. The group leaders who brought hockey into the communities after the original group were Peter Julian, who was Mr. Hockey in Indian Brook, and you had Eni Wellwood, Clara McKeel, and Fred Daw from Elmsdale. Eni Wellwood ended up being the secretary and treasurer for the executive. You had Ralph Eisner from Dutch Settlement, who did everything in that community. And you had Jerry Arnold and Murray Hupman from Tri-Village, and Murray Hupman was the vice president of East Hants Minor Hockey for a time. So that all happened from about 1964-65 into about 1968. So it grew quite quickly from the original group, and the number of teams grew quite quickly. You went from maybe one or two teams from one group, and then all of a sudden you had 3 and 4 teams in all of those groups. So the whole idea of East Hants Minor Hockey took off.
East Hants Minor Hockey Association, being founded when it was in 1963, has certainly helped the growth of hockey in East Hants, and not only Milford, but all of East Hants. And we've all seen it over the years that there's been some great hockey players who have gone on and had some great careers, and they can be very thankful to the Minor Hockey Association being started here to get those players started in their careers.
How many kids have benefited from those original members being here and taking the foresight and the encouragement to organize a minor hockey association, and the benefits that everybody has received from that, and a big shout out to them for taking the initiative to organize the association and what it is and has become to this day.
On behalf of the thousands of people over the 57 years of East Hants Minor Hockey that have participated in it, I would like to thank the founding members for what they've done for this community, for their commitment and their dedication to bringing East Hants Minor Hockey Association into the community.
2020 East Hants Sport Hall of Fame inductee, the East Hants Minor Hockey Association.